We ready?
Yep.
Nope. Guess
Nope.
not.
Oh man.
Oh, there he is. Now we see him.
Yeah.
Is that nicer? Looks a little less hazy.
Now your bald spot's a little shinier now.
Sorry, yes.
Ah!
Squeaky.
There we go. A great cold open. All right.
All right, 3, 2,
I'm
1.
going half in. I'm going half in.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Half In podcast. We're back, the usual crew. We've got Matt Lewis from Sugar Land, Texas. Welcome back to the pod, Matt.
Hello.
And Anthony Hardy from Sugar Land, Texas. Welcome back to the pod, Anthony.
Thank you, sir. Good to be back. Good to be back.
Of course, we also have Silky Willie from Sugar Land, Texas. Welcome back to the pod, Silky. And I am your host, Matthew Blake from Sugar Land, Texas. The Sugar Daddies are back.
By the way, did you see that Sugarland is rated the number 2 city to live in the entire Southwest region?
Really? Was that a recent one? Because we were number one.
No, we were number
8 years
3
ago.
according to Good Morning America back in
But
I'm finding this. I'm pulling this one up.
It's talking about a different measuring measurement zone. Sorry,
Region.
yeah. It says this one says the Southwest, whatever that means. I thought the Southwest was like New Mexico and Arizona.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
apparently, we're grouped in with them, and we beat them. Take that, Albuquerque.
Tough competition.
And
Albuquerque.
all of our New Mexican listeners now are against our pod.
Speaking of, Will,
That's
should we
right.
go straight to performance review?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Hit us,
yeah, give me a
hit us
sec.
with the performance review.
Will there be an
How did
uptick?
we do? Did we grow our listeners
Will
from
there
week
be a
1 to
downtick?
week 2? How did week 2 pod
There will be a
perform?
downtick.
Are these metrics across all platforms, or is
It's
it?
just in the Southwest.
Let's see.
You're probably not wrong, Louis.
Look, we have some interactions. Who actually listened to this episode?
Oh my gosh.
Karen Blake, it's good to hear your voices.
Sweet.
Episode 2.
Oh wow, man, we have some great fans.
Oh my god. I'm gonna publish this one. All right. So if you're watching, we're looking at our Spotify analytics right now, and there's an interaction feature if you have Spotify. And Anthony. No, we have a
interacted
user
with
called
himself.
Ann Hardy. I wonder who that could be.
I have no idea.
Ann Hardy 5 days ago said, "I agree with that Anthony guy."
I think I'm really liking our listener base right now. I don't know.
Can we get
All
to
right.
the numbers? How
So
do we
I
do?
just think it's funny how the one guy on our pod who's the most conspiracy theory oriented is also the one who's clearly the most self-promotional.
So we're looking
That's
at
usually how it works, isn't it?
our episode ranks. We have 15 plays.
Oh
for
no.
two.
Hey, we're up
declined.
10 plays from last week on the first one.
No.
Yeah, that's
no,
right.
7 plays.
No.
No, we were at like
we were at
15 or 17.
Let's
Yeah.
look. Audience size is
Audience is 17.
so 12 plays. 12. Yeah. So we have 5 Spotify followers.
The
Or-
4 of us and now my wife.
Mhm.
You're welcome. She wanted me to make sure I
No, Eric Wilkes
pointed that
listens.
out.
Eric Wilkes listens.
Eric does. Guys, Eric texted me. He just said octogenarian. That's all he said. and then later on he was like, it haunts me still.
That's great.
Why is that so bizarre?
So half of our listeners are on Spotify, 42% on Apple, 7.1 on web browser, and then 2.4 on Amazon Alexa. Shout out to whoever's listening to us on Amazon. We have
Hey,
a couple people in Wales in the UK.
That'd be your,
we have
your wife's family?
officially
Oh,
gone international.
52%. of our listeners are in Texas, 35 are Minnesota, 6%
Wow, 35% of Minnesota. That's just me and Grace.
that's Eric.
1,000 Blakes.
I
Utah.
also opened an account for all of my children, and they all listened.
There's your mom. Matt.
Your mom,
Bonnie still has not listened.
Okay.
but she thinks it's cool.
So yeah, our 95% were in the demographic of 28 to 34-year-olds, and then 5% is 60 plus. So shout out to the parents.
So okay, but can we see like unique listeners? Is that an option?
Yeah, it should be.
We can actually see the handles of the listeners.
No.
No.
We can see 17 distinct devices. So that could be one person has 2 distinct devices, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but even if one person had 2, that's still more than us.
We have 5
But-
distinct followers on Spotify.
Right, the 4 of us and Grace.
But we don't know. People could be following on Apple too. We don't have those metrics here.
All I
What?
know is that this is definitely the most entertaining portion of our podcast.
So we have not. So last week I think we had 15 or 16 unique listeners, and now we're at 17. So we gained 1 in a week.
Maybe. But look, we
I'll
have
take it.
13 views on
That's
the
not good.
of episode 1 and 3 views on episode 2. So, but guys, this takes time.
Yeah.
That's not good for a growth company.
Well, we're not helping ourselves by measuring our metrics within the first 5 minutes of our episode.
No, we're
Clearly,
open
we need to-
sourcing it. We're open sourcing it to the fans.
The idea is to draw people into the episode. They've now all skipped.
That's why we have chapters, so they can skip this part. I'll add this. We'll add this to the timestamp.
Clearly, what those numbers
All
tell
right.
me is that we need to talk more about UFOs. I don't know about you guys. But
All right. Okay. So let's start with UFOs, and then we're going to go to the real topics. But here's what we did. We talked about UFOs in week 1, and I suggested that a developing nation or something like that should go public with their alien captures, their alien findings, to draw in tourists as a tourist attraction. And what happened the next week?
Let's go.
The Mexican officials listened to the Half In Pod. They're one of those unique listeners. And they said, you know what? Let's go public with this. That's a great idea. And so they did. And Anthony in the group text was thrilled. Oh my gosh, look at this. A real country, real people inside the government going public. Here are the real photos. And it was a complete scam, just like we've been talking about.
You got to keep an
You have
open
been
mind, Matt.
You have been debunked yet again.
Got to keep an open mind.
hey, man, there's always going to be grifters. I think the biggest achievement was that someone, in fact, did listen to the Half In Pod, did take
Now
your
that is a win.
advice.
That was
That's
a
a
win.
win. That is a win.
He's clearly not sharing it with anybody, though.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, I just thought it was great moment in this pod's history, and we'll see what happens.
Time to shut it down. All right. The sugar daddies are back. Here we go. We're gonna start with we're gonna go to Matt Lewis. We've got what I think can be a really interesting conversation around education, especially, or at least initially, with public school education. Matt, you can tell us more, obviously, about your background and your experience. You're speaking from first person here, real first person experience as a teacher. Is that a thing? First person experience?
Primary source? I don't know.
Primary source. Okay. And so I think we should kind of dig into what you see, your frustrations, if you're allowed to talk about that in public. And I don't know, are there solutions? What alternatives are there? Why is this a problem? All those kinds of things. So I'll just kind of tee it up with that and then send it over to you, and you can kind of get into the details.
Okay. Well, yeah. So as the background, or as my background, I've been teaching now. This is my 11th year as a public school teacher. I've always taught elementary school in a Houston school district. Houston area school district. And like much of the Houston area, our district is experiencing ridiculous amount of growth, especially on the southwest western side of Houston. And although that, I got into education for a lot of reasons, I still ultimately believe kind of in my heart that public education is a greater good, a common good for all of society. And I believe that alone is enough to funnel as many resources as we can, whether that's private or federal or whatever, into public ed, because the fact of the matter is that I don't have hard statistics on this, but most kids go to public schools, and therefore most of society is educated in a public school system, at least in the United States. And it just makes sense that we would want to, make sure that these folks that are running our society and growing up in our society and will one day inherit our society, have a good head on their shoulders, know how to be good citizens and know to participate and contribute in whatever way they can to society, and have the education that they need to support their lifestyle or whatever they decide to do to contribute to society, in whatever meaningful way. So in the last 10 years that I've been in it, my perspective is that honestly things have just gotten worse. Now, COVID obviously has a big factor in that. However, even if you take the COVID out of the equation, I would still feel the same in general, that public ed has kind of gone downhill. I'm speaking, I guess, specifically about public ed in Texas. I've taught in the Austin area, and now I've been teaching in the Houston area for the longest time out of those 10 years. And when I say it's gotten worse, I say that just the support for teachers at the state government level and society in general, even for teachers just at a family level, has gotten worse. And in addition to that, I think that the profession of educator has only lost respect, and the attitude that most people, that's hard to say, it's hard to generalize, but the thinking is that the attitude that most people have towards public education is that it's just either not necessary, or it's this thing that can kind of, support itself or take care of itself, which of course is not. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of politicians and people who speak about education and speak on education, even if they do have ideas about what should be done or what should be changed, they always come at it from a perspective. I feel like they always come at it from a perspective that's more business oriented versus human oriented, and they're looking for opportunities to invest, and they're looking for returns on that investment, literally monetary returns on those investments in one way or another, whether that's support financially from constituents, in terms of school board elections and stuff like that, or lobbying the testing creators, the people who make all the testing for the state, whatever. So the environment that a public educator is in now is really just filled with a lot of pessimism and toxicity, and there's really not an end in sight. So it's a difficult place to be in. On top of that, I would say that COVID definitely exacerbated all of the problems. But my point today, that I wanted to bring up, is actually how public education is being affected, especially in my district, but in the Houston area at large, with all the real estate that's happening. Now, I haven't thought about this enough to really say if the current housing market what the current housing market is really playing into this factor. But I know that historically in the last 5 or 6 years. Southwest Houston, west side of Houston, Northwest Houston is really just blowing up, and there's really no end in sight to the amount of developers that are coming in and developing the land that is openly available. And because it seems as though these developers are not communicating to the local school districts that they're zoned to. And so the issues that I am personally encountering, even especially at my current school, is that our area is being completely inundated with new housing developments. And our district simply, literally, cannot build schools fast enough to keep up with the demand that is the housing market in our area. And people are coming, they're buying the houses, they're bringing in families, or people are coming in and renting them or buying them to rent. Families are moving in, and their kids, literally in my situation, their kids do not have a place. They cannot go to the school they're zoned to. Our school has been capped because we have reached basically critical mass. And instead, if you buy a house or rent a house in my neighborhood, in the neighborhood that my school is in, you cannot come to my school. You are actually sent to a school that is over 30 minutes south of our current school.
Wow.
And when you factor that in, the district is providing transportation and buses and everything, but when you factor the amount of time that takes for a student to get there and back, even on like a normal day without extra traffic or an accident or whatever, you're looking at a lot of extra time out of the kid's day before and after school for the parent. And it's just a really sad situation when you think about that specific situation for, say, like a kindergartner, like a 5-year-old is spending, upwards of an hour plus on a bus every day. And because they had to get bused down to the school and then back and everything. And again, that's if there's no extra traffic and all that stuff. Excuse me. So in addition to situations like that, the overcrowding at our schools is really the biggest issue. We have over 1,100 students in our school, and this is an elementary school, pre-K through 5th grade. And I believe I couldn't say the number, but I know that the number that's green, like at capacity for our school building, not including like the portables and everything else that they've added on the side, is probably somewhere between 700 and 800 students. And so now we're looking at, a lot more than that. At the beginning of the year, we were actually almost at 1,300. And because of various things that happened during the summer and transient families, whatever, we've dropped down to about 11 something. But we're still massively overcrowded, which means our class sizes are huge. We're very lucky this year that we're actually fully staffed. Last year we were not, and we had a campus just about as large. But what sucks about this, on top of just the sheer numbers and the safety concerns that brings, is it has a major impact on student performance and what students are actually able to learn in the classroom. If you have a class of 30 kids, which, remember, this is elementary school, this isn't high school, this isn't middle school, this isn't college where you can teach an auditorium of 500 plus. This is elementary kids that are figuring out not only what they need to learn, but how they learn. And students teachers have to differentiate their instruction in every way. And a lot of kids, especially now, post-COVID, have to have additional accommodations because of the way the special education programs in Texas are working, which is a whole other topic that I probably don't know enough to talk about. But basically, the bottom line is when you have a class that large, student performance is severely impacted. And it has a really detrimental impact at this age, especially. Always it does. But if you can, obviously the best instruction, the best teaching is always done one-on-one, because you can tailor your education, your whatever you're learning, to the specific needs of the specific person you're teaching. And you can get immediate feedback, direct feedback, and it's efficient. It's tailor-made teaching. So when you add more and more kids to that, small group instruction is still really important. But when you have a class size that's 30 plus, or, it's just, it's just a long-term impact that really may not ever get made up. So I don't know what the current laws are, if there are any, but my thinking is, because the developers seem to just be developing these areas without any legitimate conversations with the school district, without any oversight from, or even meaningful suggestions from the school district. I would love to see some kind of law be passed that requires the developers and the local school districts to talk and coordinate what they're going to do to make sure that these communities are adequately served with schools. And it's funny because a city very close to me, the city I technically sort of work in, but a city that is covered in my district, recently had a big boil water notice because there was the area, this city has blown up, and as far as population, and I guess from what I heard, they are adding all this housing, but they didn't actually add like the adequate water supply. Like they didn't build another water tower or whatever water treatment facility that they needed to. And so it literally wasn't able to keep up the demand. And then they had some, issue that happened because it was being overworked. The whole city had to boil water for like 3 days or something. I don't know. I could be totally wrong on that, but I know it happened. And so I was thinking about this in conjunction with this issue with overcrowding in schools. And they're building houses without the adequate infrastructure to support the housing. Not the water, power, the whole power grid in Texas is a whole issue. That's part of it. But I feel like schools, which are an essential part of society, in whatever way you look at it, whatever kind of schools you're thinking, need to be considered just like the internet and water and power and police presence and fires. They need to be considered part of the infrastructure to actually create a good society. And if you look at the footprint of all the different building projects and zoning and whatever in the entire area, I feel like the southwest side of Houston, west side of Houston, you can find anything you want to eat, anywhere you want to shop, it's there. But you can't find you can't find enough schools to teach your kids, or a water plant or a water tower to like get water to your house. Like obviously the water thing's an exaggeration, but you see what I'm saying? So it's just ridiculous that these things are being done and not being done. And I'm pretty sure it's all because of developers' greed, of course, because if they can build this entire area, all these acres, and just fill them with houses and make buku money off of it, what do they care? So that's the current situation. That's the way I see it, and it's a mess.
Lou, sorry, I wasn't listening. Could you start over?
Louis, as a Sim City player, I totally get the whole infrastructure thing. And if water goes out, and I'm gonna go back into my cities and make sure after that talk,
protect for your aliens,
that my education is adequately funded in my cities. So you've inspired me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hopefully the other guys have some follow-up questions. There's a ton to unpack, but going back to the very beginning, like why are so many people showing up? Has that been like a constant trend? Is that like a newer thing?
I think there's a lot of factors to that question. And I know where you're going with this with immigration. That is absolutely a factor. But I would say that even domestically, people have been, moving to Texas since early 2000s, like
right.
in hordes, especially from California and the other, higher dollar markets, simply from a cost of living standpoint. And now, especially as Austin is now a new tech center or tech hub, and Dallas has always been such a big financial hub. Houston, obviously, with oil. So people are moving here all the time, domestically and internationally. And I think that Houston has the added factor of being a big immigrant population as well. People not just from south of the border, but from all over. We have Houston area is one of the most diverse cities in the world. We have major populations from Africa, from South America, from Latin America, um, from Asia. Like, there's a huge Vietnamese population here. Like, so it's a factor, but it's like it's nothing new. And surrounding school districts, and this is the thing I would say, but I'm not happy with this answer, because I've used this answer for like the last couple of years, and I just realized it's not good enough. But surrounding districts that are close to my district, I feel like have gone through this same process as they were growing and growing. And now more or less they're kind of landlocked and like they've been built out. And now they're kind of backtracking and they're kind of catching up. And that's fine. But my district is geographically way bigger. So we have a lot more room to grow. And all that room is just going to get taken up by housing if we don't do something to stop it. And what I was going to say was my answer for long is like, it's just the way it is. We just got to catch up. But that's not good enough, because it's having such huge long-term major impacts on the kids, especially post-COVID.
So I guess just to, as you were going through it all, I pulled up the Texas Education Agency kind of documentation. I don't know when this document was published. June of 2020. And I guess I can share this real quick. So I was just trying to like read through kind of what exactly. So I highlighted and I searched for property tax, right? Because we know, like, in the state of Texas, that's how it even says funding for Texas public schools comes from three main sources: local school district property tax, state funds, federal funds. So I almost wonder, like, to your point, things are going too fast. I wonder if it's because I was trying to do some reading.
You can't see your screen yet.
Yeah, we can't see your screen.
Oh, shoot. Why did it pause?
It just says Will Hickle has started screen sharing, but then it's black.
Dude, that is so funny. Let me try again.
While you're pulling that up,
Yes.
oh, there you go. Go ahead.
There we go.
Well, go ahead and say what you're gonna say, because I gotta find it again.
Well, I was just going to say, Louis, do you think that this means, is this, I would assume this is a positive then for Academy Sports and Outdoors? All these people flooding into South Texas.
Oh my God.
An academy
better question, should, as they build out these cities, all of this infrastructure conversation and requirements, you have to check with so-and-so and so-and-so before you can do X, Y, and Z. Should they have to check with Academy Sports if they want to place a location?
No, but truly related, part of that infrastructure is parks and recreation for these communities,
Right.
which means baseball fields, football fields, little league
Right.
fields.
Of course.
And where does everybody go to shop for their little league gear? Where
The
the
right stuff, the right price.
That's right.
It's hilarious. Okay, so anyways, combing through this document, so this for those just listening, there's overview. What is the foundation school program? FSP is the state program that establishes the amount of state and local funding due to school districts under Texas school finance law, provides the state share of this funding to districts. So I wonder, I guess just to see it from the district side, it's like, I read something down here. They do so tier 2 of the FSP is funding per student and weighted average daily attendance. So like if there is no daily attendance because there's nothing existing, like I just wonder if it's like an unfortunate cart before the horse. Like maybe they can anticipate how much growth is going to happen based off of the development, but like if they need, and I didn't read it far enough to know, like, is it, are they able, and I assume they're able to just take on a massive loan or debt, or the school, maybe the Texas Education Agency like has a war chest,
bonds.
Issue a municipal bond. Yeah.
So bonds, and then of course the taxes, but if they haven't started collecting any taxes because no one lives there yet, you know what I mean? So I don't know, but I'm just, I guess to see it, because there is a problem. And like, I love what you texted in the group of kind of like being like, it should be a law that school districts and property developers for housing specifically there should be some sort of like check and balance, and or maybe even like uh maybe the property tax liability should come in on the developer. So like, hey, you own this piece of land, there's no houses on it yet, but like you need to pay extra property tax to help put into the school fund to then like get help building the school as you build housing. Or shoot, maybe housing developers, like if they're a certain size or if they're building a certain number of homes, maybe they should be required to build a school like in that neighborhood. Just
that's a great point. And I don't know for a fact like how things were done, but if you think about back when we were in elementary school and long before, most elementary schools in our area were neighborhood schools.
that's true, yeah.
And now, and I'm not sure if it's the district's choice or the developer's choice or whose choice or whatever, or what the real reasons are behind it. But now schools are being built bigger to house more kids, and they're being built in a way that is more not not neighborhood centralized, but like just centralized. And the reason that I think is because they can basically get more bang for their buck, because you can put more kids in a classroom, more kids in a school, hire less teachers to run that school, less people to run that school because it's one central area, and everything associated with that, basically overhead of one building versus overhead of multiple small buildings. It's kind of like the big box versus small box store idea, I guess, in a way.
Like the Academy Sports and Outdoors versus like Bob and Sue's Get Your Cleats Here.
Don't shop at Bob and Sue's. Those people are jerks. Okay.
But what's interesting is, and I didn't know this until I started at my current campus, which I just started at last year. So my district, and this could be different district to district, I don't know, but my district holds bond elections to pass municipal bonds to basically fund the building of all the new schools. And they have to go and procure land on their own that has not been claimed yet, or buy from somebody who has claimed it. So the developers don't necessarily have to keep that in mind. They don't have to keep a space in their neighborhood for a school anymore, or at least not in our situation. What's interesting is my current school was built because the developer of my community, of my neighborhood, because mine is a neighborhood school, gifted the district the land to build the school. And that's why my school doesn't have a name of a person. Like, it's not like, George Washington Elementary. It's actually named after the neighborhood that it's in. And that's because the developer gave the land to the district. Because, I don't know why they did it. But the thing is, and this is where it's kind of interesting, because the developers, one of the biggest draws, and anybody with kids knows this, one of the biggest draws to moving into a house, whether you're renting or buying, is the schools that they're zoned to. If they're zoned to a good school in a good district, then the value of that home is more, period. It's higher value. And so it's interesting that the developers don't seem to be thinking about this, even though I'm sure they are, because that's
super interesting.
Yeah. Because if they have a school that's overcrowded and now they can't even fill the houses in that community that they're trying to sell, that's a detriment to their bottom line. And so for my neighborhood, I guess it's mostly built out, but I know there's still plenty of open land right around our school that's going to get developed really soon, like in the next 5 years at the most. And they're going to be zoned to our school unless other schools are built. And so it's like, and our district is always building schools. I feel like we open between 1 and 3 elementaries alone every year.
And how are those staffed?
With teachers? What do you mean?
Well, yeah, but are they like adequately staffed, or are they understaffed?
So that's a whole other factor right now, because the way teaching, and that's why I said what I said earlier in my open about it. like the way teaching is viewed these days, it's not even a profession like I would push my own kids into, honestly. I really wouldn't, unless they truly had a calling for it / like a true love of actually teaching. Because it's just such a drag right now. It really is. It is so flipping hard. And staffing because of that is even harder than ever, And so I know staffing shortages are all over the district, all over districts in our area, all over the districts everywhere, because teaching is just a slog right now. So that's a whole other factor.
I have a couple of follow-ups, but Anthony, do you have any more questions you want to ask the president of the Texas Teachers Union while we have him?
Not at press time. You can go ahead with yours.
Okay. What is like a good teacher to student ratio? Or student to teacher
Depends on the
ratio?
age. Depends on the age. I would say between,
Obviously 30 to 1 is inefficient.
Yeah.
It's just not effective.
So I mean, ideally it would be probably between 10 and 15 students. I would say from ages like first grade through 5th grade, I would say 10 and 15. Younger than that, 10 or less, ideally. So like kindergarten and younger, I think that would be like truly ideal. Like you can actually get stuff done, and make sure the kids know their stuff. Middle school and up, it's definitely more, but I think like so our high schools are also really overcrowded right now too, and like massively overcrowded. Kids don't have a place to sit in their classes. The hallways are so jam-packed with students that kids can't get to their classes on time, even though they're trying to, allegedly, according to posts that I've seen.
Do they still have like T-Shacks? You guys remember T-Shacks?
Oh yeah, they're
Oh, yeah.
everywhere. Every campus has them. They build new schools and install T-Shacks before the school opens because they're not building them big enough, or they're not building enough of them, however you want to look at it. I'm not kidding. It's ridiculous. We have 2 full grade levels outside in T-Shacks this year. We have pre-K through 5, and 2 of our grade levels are outside. Last year, just one of them was. But to answer your question, in middle school and high school, I would say 30 would be the max, like to be truly effective. Because a lot more independent learning happens at that time. But like I know a lot of the high schools some of the high schools in my area have like 40 plus kids, and it's just like the thing is there's a balance to strike. Not only is the education being impacted and what they can actually achieve in the classroom, but you also have to look at how much workload that is on a teacher. Because if they have 40 plus students in one class and they see 6 classes a day in the high school, right? That's almost 300 kids that they have to do grades for, every so often or every week or whatever, tests and all that stuff. So it's like you have to balance workload with actual efficient teaching too.
Do you think that they should cut certain coursework? I ask it from the perspective of, and we can get into this or we can shelve it for another time because it's getting late in the day, but I was going to ask you about your perspective on homeschooling. And if you would, like, is your plan to send your kiddos to public school or to private school, or is there any thought or ability of homeschool? I don't know, but we're trying to homeschool our kids, but the idea of homeschooling is that, or the idea of, like, when I think of school, and Grace and I talk about this a good bit, but like you have this really stressful environment, right? It's not like a fun, not that it has to be fun, but it's not a really conducive environment. And you have all of these people, like 30 to 1, 40 to 1, ratios, and you go to school all day long. You go to school for 8 hours or however long, and you have 7 courses or 7 classes or 8 classes, all for 50 minutes apiece. And then to have some semblance of childhood, or something. When you get out of school, you have an extracurricular, so you play a sport or you do an arts thing or a music thing or whatever. And then you go home and you have hours worth of homework. Why? Because when you're actually at school, you don't do anything because you're trying to cram in 7 or 8 classes so that they like barely scratch the surface on something, and then they just give you an assignment to then go do at home. And then at the end of the day, like the actual time that you're supposed to be like integrated with your family, where you like learn how to be human and how to like take care of a household and like actually oftentimes really important things that go unknown by so many
Unaddressed.
young people and completely unaddressed. There's no time for that. It totally gets squeezed out. So like, what's the point of school if you just go home and then have to do homework? That's a serious question. I'm really
That's a
curious.
good question.
Like, it doesn't make sense to
question.
me. I like, it didn't make sense to me intuitively when I was in school. I couldn't like think about it. So I didn't
That's what
do
I was laughing at.
I didn't do homework. Okay.
You were such an academic.
I did not do homework when I was in any school except college, because that was my focus. And I had 3 or 4 classes, but I could pour myself into 3 or 4 subjects over the course of an entire semester. And that's, I think, one of the beauties of and flexibility of homeschool is that you can just focus on, and our kids are young, but you can focus on, the English, the reading, the writing, the mathematics, those kinds of things. You can layer on other things. If they're really struggling in an area, you can really just pour all of your attention and focus into that area of struggle to bring them up. Or if they really excel in one area, you can really pour into that area where they really excel, because clearly they have an interest and a passion for it. Or whatever. Like there's a number of, if a child doesn't learn well at a certain time of day, they're screwed if their hardest class, mathematics, is at 9 o'clock in the morning, when they're just not sharp in the morning. They need to have a meal first. They need to have lunch first until, you know what I mean? So I don't know. You take the kids outside, you take them to a park, you take them to NASA, and like whatever.
So what's your question?
What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I think ultimately, though, the system that we have developed, and I say we as in American society, and
it came out of the Industrial Revolution.
Right, but
it's very, very much that way.
But it goes further than that. Because yes, I don't disagree with that. And that's kind of what I meant by like people look at school as a way to invest and get return, right? Which I still believe, but it goes further than that, because the reasons that teachers assign homework is because the demands that are put on them with the things that they have to teach and get through in a year is way more than what is reasonable and practical for anybody, usually, on top of the fact that they have to do it with a class of 40 plus kids.
Right.
So it's a doom loop, man.
I'm not necessarily blaming the teachers, right? I'm just saying that like I think my original point was that you have 7 or 8 classes.
No, I know, but
you have to go to every single day for 45 minutes or 50 minutes by the time you actually get into teaching.
Right. But yes, and I don't disagree with that. But if you think about what you're saying, it's exactly what I said earlier, where the best education happens one-on-one.
Right.
And if we had the ability to create a public school system that had 10 kids to a class, 10-to-1 teacher ratio, can you imagine how efficient we could make
effective it would be? So then why not? Is it
education at home?
Is it geography? Is it real estate? Or is it just the fact that teachers aren't paid? Like if teachers were being paid really well, would there be more teachers, which would then in a way solve that problem, because then you have more teachers, You can have more.
I don't
Or,
think so.
or does it just not, is there not enough space to build schools to even be able to do something like that?
My answer is no, and then also no. Because
What were my questions?
you said if we paid enough, if we just paid them more, would that be enough? Or if we had more space for them to build more schools?
Oh yeah,
And the answer is no
they're
to
good
me,
questions.
because teaching is really freaking hard, and people don't see it like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would look.
I'm,
I
I'm not.
mean,
I'm
I was
not.
a
I'm
youth
not. I'm
minister
not
for a
saying
long
you
time.
do.
No, I know, but this is a
But
good
just
story.
let me say this
This is a good
for our listeners, okay? Teaching is really freaking hard, and most people have absolutely no clue
Yeah,
what
so
it is
true.
to teach a group of kids a specific concept. And actually get them to the point, because you can't. It's not just telling them what it is. It's telling them what it is, making sure they understand the concept, and then can apply the concept, right? And it's just, there's so much that goes into it, and it just has to do with the amount of, it has to do with the way that teaching is looked at, like in our society as a whole. And and honestly, if you look at any college of education, and maybe this is really, really mean, it is really mean, but I feel like most colleges of education, including the one that I was at, they're filled with people who don't know what the hell they want to do. They're filled with people who are just picking a major. They're filled with folks that are using it as a backup. And I can say that because I was that person. I am that person. You know what I mean? Like, I did this so I had a paycheck. But I love what it stands for. But people treat these jobs like they're just junk, and so it's almost like a self-perpetuating stereotype. It's like, you look at a lot of the teachers that are in a lot of schools, and they're like, these people are dumb. Like I don't know. Like I said, it's
It's
really
hard.
mean to say,
Look,
but
it's
the profession has become a dump all for people who don't know what else to do, or for people who are yeah, I already said my point.
sounds like the theology major lost in the world and needing a job, so they become a youth minister. Look,
Yeah, well,
I was
It's
oh,
education.
go ahead, Will, and then
No,
I
I
have
was
I have a quick story, and then we're gonna move on to the next
Well,
topic.
I was just gonna say, like, none of us can fully understand, because obviously Matt has been doing it for a decade plus, but like we've all done youth ministry, and we've all tried to give talks or whatever. So it's like I just have like a little appetizer of like what it must be like on a daily basis to deal with like brats who could care less and who are on their phone the whole time, and you're trying to like teach them something
And I don't even do that. I couldn't imagine, man. I couldn't imagine competing with a phone.
Yeah, you got people in your class wearing tall tees, and it's Will.
Or 3 polos with 3
It was two. It was
Oh my
two.
gosh.
May as well have
Oh
been
my
3
gosh.
or more.
So I was asked to substitute teach when I was at Resurrection Catholic School Church in Denver Harbor, inner city, Houston, Texas. And I was like, yeah, I can
Right.
substitute teach first grade. How hard could it be? And it was the worst day of my life. And it ended with this, they were first graders, this boy picking on this girl, and she walks over to him. She didn't walk over to him. She runs over to him and she tackles him to the ground, and she's punching him. A first grader girl just punching the crap out of this boy. And I'm like yelling, like trying to break it up. And then I'm like, I don't want to like grab him. I don't know. I'm like supposed to touch kids and stuff. So I'm like, just like, it was so stressful. I said, screw it. I just left. Just walked out of the class to go get help.
Hey, I get some help down here.
I did. I went to the next class, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I need I need help. Can someone come help me? That was the first and last time I ever substitute taught. Okay, good.
What one thing? Okay. We'll go to Neuralink.
Wait, Tony, you haven't talked much. I want to hear what you're gonna say.
Well, the one thing I was going to say is I actually have a great idea for if we want to bring a guest on to talk about homeschool in particular.
Yeah.
Oh,
My
your sister.
my older sister
Yeah, let's do it.
she's a mother of 8 now, and she homeschools like half her kids. She's got a YouTube channel, Domestic Chaos Coordinator, where she like talks about all this stuff, like vlogs about it. So we want to do a deep dive. She'd be great to have on here.
That'd be
And
cool.
we should have Grace on at the same time because she would have a million really good questions to ask her.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we can shut down the pod and they could have their own homeschool pod and we could finally sunset and
That'd
retire.
be dope.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. We'll do
No,
it.
a pod on homeschool would be great. I'm sure there is one, but that'd be great. With the Catholic lens.
All right, well, hit us with some Neuralink. What's going on?
All right, as we are all fans of Mr. Musk, his company Neuralink, they are they seek to create a device that can be implanted in your brain, and it's a really cool concept. They've tested it out on some pigs, and some of those tests were successful. And I think even some monkeys where they were able to like have the monkeys learn to control like a cursor with the Neuralink, etc. It would have like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all this crazy stuff. So his first goal is to help people, the quadriplegics, people with spinal injuries, to help them reconnect the nerves from their brain to various parts of their body. So this headline that I'm sharing on the screen: Neuralink's first in human clinical trials open for recruitment. So the terrifying part where the FDA has finally approved for them to conduct a study under the investigational device exemption awarded by the FDA in May of 2023. Those who have quadriplegia due to cervical spinal cord injury, or what is that word?
Amyotrophic.
Amyotrophic lateral. Oh, it's ALS. Yeah, that's what that stands for. I didn't know. Amyotrophic trophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, may qualify. So for any listener, if you know somebody who is brave and would like to try out Neuralink, we'll share this link in the show notes. You can check out their website. Very intriguing that it's gotten to the human level. We're all big fans of, well, some of us. Louis, are you a big fan of Elon? You're just
No,
a
I hate
fan.
For the most part, ish. Yes. I'm like 50-50 on him.
Yeah, I'm like 90-10.
He hates how rich he is.
Eh.
And I'm all in.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll do a quick like popcorn between the boys, and then we can move on to our final subject because we're running out of time. But like, just real quick and easy, would you do it if you had an injury or even not? Would you do Neuralink, Louis?
If I did not have an injury, absolutely not. If I had an injury, probably not. It would have to be, I would have to be really desperate. Like majorly desperate.
Anthony.
At this stage, hell no, I would not try this thing. I would not be the guinea pig. I couldn't do it. I mean, if I had some kind of super horrific injury, maybe I'd think differently, but at this point, no, I wouldn't.
Matthew Blake.
No, I would not. And I saw a meme once that was talking about the COVID vaccine, and it was like, "Oh, the COVID vaccine, they're trying to put chips inside of us. Beware, avoid the vax." And then it was Elon Musk like, "I'm just going to implant a chip in your brain." And they're like, "Yeah, this guy's brilliant."
I'm like quickly Googling.
Try to see if you can find it. It was great. It was a long time ago, though. It was a couple years ago.
3 years ago.
I mean, obviously, I wouldn't personally get this right now, but like I find it super fascinating. I think it's like the next step into the whole human AI cyborg, if you want to
Yeah.
call it,
Well,
interface.
that's the whole other thing. Like under the Catholic eye, is this even allowed?
Is it ethical? Yeah,
Ethical,
it's gonna
kosher?
be really interesting to see kind of where it all goes. I don't
think it wouldn't be, because a
don't
hearing
understand.
aid goes in your head, right? Like it's not.
Yeah, but that's not. I mean,
I
yes,
think
it's a good point.
I think the bigger and better question is going to be what happens to longevity over the rest of our lifetime.
Mm.
There was some stat I
Yeah, how
remember,
long are they going to live with it?
like how long are we going to live? Like by the time
exactly.
we're into our 70s and 80s, where is medicine? Where are therapeutics?
Is there a Catholic answer to that?
I don't know, but I just know like the stat is like 1 in 3 children being born today will live to at least 100. Now, I don't know how they know that, but I think it makes sense. You've got like all of this gene editing and da 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 and CRISPR and all this kind of stuff that I do not understand in any way, but I think it's just interesting. And what is the Catholic kind of overlay
will say-
into those types of things as you start getting the average age moves up into the right and people start living well into their hundreds.
I think that
on.
probably if you use it as a result of injury, then it's maybe allowed. But if it's not, like it's something that's like genetically modified, like CRISPR, like then that's not allowed.
Well, the thing is, like, you're not allowed to replace your brain or your genitals. Does anyone know, like, a theologian or, like Matt, are you connected to any professors at St. Thomas that?
It's got Han on.
Oh my gosh, that'd be funny. I was just scouring Catholic Answers to see if they had something, the website. I didn't see anything. I will answer this, and then we're going to move to our final subject with Mr. Anthony, Mr. Hardy.
And Hardy.
Yeah, our commenter, Ann Hardy, whoever that might be.
I like that guy.
I would not do it now. If I had an injury, I actually might be one of the people who signs up. So,
Becca, if you're listening, make sure you have power of attorney.
And in a future time,
in a healthcare directive.
We need to extrapolate this technology out, because whole nother discussion we go into, but one day this technology, it's not just going to be used for rehabilitation and medical, it's going to be potentially the norm to implant your child with this chip so that they can interface from the day they're born all the way throughout with like AI or whatever technology is out currently, and they will have the edge in hiring in all these other fields, learning, education. And the have-nots that don't elect to have this chip will be totally void of that.
Or the have-nots who can't afford it.
Right, exactly. So
that's what they said about the vaccine, though, too. Who have the vaccine and the have-nots, they don't get to go to school, they don't get to travel, they don't get to do all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That didn't pan out.
Yeah. And I don't know if this would either, but that's a really good point, Anthony. And maybe, we table that. But Anthony, let's kick it back over to you, and let's talk about this.
Yeah, the F-35 that just went missing. So, as the title says, one day during the military exercise, there was a mishap up in the air, and a pilot got ejected or electedly ejected from his F-35 jet. And while it was on autopilot, and it just kind of cruised away, and he
didn't know where it was, allegedly.
The military lost it because this is a stealth aircraft and they couldn't find it. So at some point after losing it, they decided to contact the public and say, hey, can anyone help us find this thing? And then they eventually found it, but it was just pretty funny because, this highly advanced piece of, weaponry was just
one of the most highly advanced pieces of weaponry in the world.
Correct. Yes. And the
military
plane. 1.7 trillion
was the whole program. I think that each plane is like $80 million.
No, Louis is right. It's 100 million.
Okay. Yeah.
I had that stat pulled up, so sorry, I'm red right now.
No, it's good. Yeah, so it's just pretty funny that like things have to be pretty bad if the military's like, hey, public, can you help us find this thing? Because everyone else is looking for it and we don't know where it is.
How do they not have a tracker on the damn thing? Like it was in stealth mode? Come on. I mean, yeah, sure, whatever, fine, but
Well,
like,
I think that's
you
where
need
this
low jack on your F-35? Come on. Good lord.
I think that's where the suspicion comes in because they just call it a mishap, but like, did it get hacked? Did some like system fail? Did AI take over, eject the pilot, and it just went cruising? Like,
why did he eject? That's my question.
I don't know if they've said, but yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Maybe the plane was like talking to him, and it was like, "Hello, Colonel. I'm going to take you on a fun ride." And he's like, "Nope."
I don't know, but I really want that voice as my car's voice from in the future.
We gotta
Which
make it
one?
happen.
Your voice, William.
Oh yeah, we could record that.
Colonel.
Colonel Lewis. Hello.
So maybe if that pilot had a Neuralink in him, he could have talked to this fighter jet better. But since he didn't, it just kind of flew off without him.
That would be an
Or-
interesting.
Or it started talking to him and it was like, now playing Riding in My Chevy by Will Hickle. He's
Riding
like,
in my
"No."
F-35.
I don't know why you guys love that song so much. It's like
Dude,
the worst
Louis-
song.
it is a
so-
banger.
Louis is so unimpressed. Dude, that song was great.
You put it on Spotify.
Go
so our listeners can listen.
creeping through Sugarland Town Center.
That's
We
right.
should
Delete
end
it.
the episode with that song. If
Can
we
you put
Yes.
the song in at the end of this episode?
Yeah, I'll look for it. Yeah.
All right. What do you mean you'll look for it? Just say yes, we'll get it done.
On his desktop, we all know.
Come on, producer Will.
I
Get it
don't-
done.
I legitimately have to find it. I'll do it. I will find it. I just don't know where it is right now.
I think it's in my iTunes. I can send it to you if you don't find it.
Okay. Oh,
Anthony keeps everything.
It's true.
He's
It is
got
true.
every
It
picture
is true.
and everything from like the last 15 years. You mention it, and like 8 minutes later, you get it.
I sent it.
Like, how do you have these, and how do you know where they are?
Dude, I got a very, very
That
clean
Neuralink.
file structure.
Just a file system in his brain, man.
Oh, that's so funny. All right, good stuff. All right, for the sugar daddies, Matt, Anthony, and Silky, thank you to our pod partner Lubrew and our only listener, Eric Wilkes.
Octogenarian.
It's been another powerful episode of the Half In Podcast. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ride in my Chevy, ride in my Chevy. Ride in my Chevy, ride in my Chevy. Ride in my Chevy, ride in my Chevy. Ride in my Chevy, ride in my Chevy, ride in my Chevy. Ride in my Chevy, ride in my Chevy.